Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in this evening's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the action which took place in the EPL over the weekend. Arsenal coming up big versus Aston Villa. And of course, the first big upset of the season, Brighton taking care of business versus Manchester United. Now, joining me this evening to dissect and review these matches, we have returning to the platform, Leon.
Pleasure to be back, viewers and subscribers. Been away for a minute, but always here.
We also have returning Christoph.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, indeed, gents. We're going to jump straight into the action. Leon, I'll come to you first on this one. Big Manchester United fan. Your team went down 1-0 to Brighton, Leon. Talk to us about that game. Could the
I
result have been
mean,
better?
the result could have been better. Those games always come down to fine margins. Brighton won it on the last minute, but overall, I was more not so the result. I was more looking forward to the performances. It's this coach's third season. He had let's say a decent first season, a horrible second season. So I'm looking for the third season to kind of balance it out and see where we are. New, I would say, new team behind of him. So the excuses from last season doesn't really count for this season. And the game went pretty much as expected. Brighton, a very possession-based team. It doesn't matter which coach it is. They always seem to play somewhat the same. And Manchester United finding their feet, a couple injuries in pre-season. So the game went as expected, a little luck we didn't have for Manchester United. But I think it's fair to say that Brighton winning is not out of the result was not deserved, I would say, for Brighton.
Indeed. I did predict it in all honesty in the previous show, to be honest. I saw it coming, really. I've been on this Manchester United team from last season, and not even the team per se, I would say the coach. I am yet to see a Ten Hag philosophy, that Ten Hag pattern of play, Leon, that he became known for over there in Ajax. I am yet to see that from this Manchester United team. The Brighton coach is new, and you can already see his imprint on the team. It doesn't need to take you 3 years.
Uh,
It took this Brighton coach just this summer to put his imprint on the team, his philosophy, his playing style. You can see what the Brighton team is trying to do. And
I
I'm
think
just
with
not seeing that from United.
I think with the style of playing, I really kind of look back at it because, as you said, a style of play should be prevalent by now. And I think when you look from Ten Hag's like old team of Ajax versus Manchester United, I think they kind of play similarly, to be honest. Because even in Ajax, as you can see, Manchester United when we're building up, our midfielders vacate the middle completely. So it's the ball progression is normally left for the defenders, and when you look to the Ajax team, it's kind of the same. I think the difference is between Ten Hag's control he had with Ajax versus the control he had with Manchester United now. The league is much more competitive. Plus, he had
Mm.
specialists in those roles back in Ajax. You had a Frankie de Jong that even if he was the only midfielder in the middle of the pitch, he could dominate games. And when you look at Casemiro tends to be more precise when he has a lot
But
of time on the ball.
United have spent big, Leon. As you said, this is Ten Hag third season. It means you would have had what, 4 or 5 transfer windows to pretty much bring in players which fit his mold. Which from the looks of the players he has brought in, these seem to be Ten Hag players and not necessarily, the backroom staff or the higher
Yeah.
ups throwing players to him and say, hey, here are some players, work with them. It seems as if these players are handpicked, for want of a better word, by Ten Hag. It's players he has either worked with before or somewhat
Or
familiar with them. So,
it's
I'm not
it's
sure what more he needs to get the ball rolling, so to
uh,
speak.
it it's agreeable. I think like you're never gonna see the style of play that he had
I have given up
Ajax
in all
converted
honesty.
to. Yeah, I think it's the same setup. It's just different results. To be honest, it's the same
Indeed,
setup but
indeed.
just different results.
In all honesty, there cannot be an excuse for Ten Hag this season. The result must come, or as Manchester United board or whoever is making the decisions must make the decision to part ways. It's not that just that he has had 5 windows to bring in players that fit his mold or fit he want. He has brought in players that he was coaching at Ajax, so there is legitimately no excuse. He has brought Ajax to Manchester and cannot get them playing how he wants. Yeah.
Indeed.
Indeed,
Lots
I
of
agree
twists
with you
and
that it's
turns.
a much more competitive game over in England. It could be that that style of play that he was playing in the Eredivisie does not translate well here. But in that case, you as a top manager need to come up with a new plan. So it could be a case where we're seeing that he really isn't a top level manager, and it just appeared as such because of the division that he was playing in.
I mean, time will tell, time will tell. We see Van Nistelrooy coming in to offer some help. But indeed, I feel Van Nistelrooy has been brought in, Leon, to really take his job.
Replace
But
him.
credit must be given to Brighton, though, Leon. I mean, new coach, and Brighton has gotten off to a magnificent start. 2 wins from two. What more can you ask for? And goals are coming. And of course, defensively, they didn't look too bad versus Everton. Granted, it was versus a 10-man Everton, but they did enough versus Manchester United to really get the 3 points. They look the more aggressive of the two team. If not, of course, for that, what should I say? That touch from Zerkski, which prevented that Garnacho goal from going in. It could have been a different ball game, but Brighton took their chances. From a United player, Welbeck coming up with the goods, Leon. And again, I called him out
Always.
in the preseason, and he is the man on fire for Brighton at the moment. And definitely credit has to be given to Brighton, the coach, the management, the team off to a flyer. 6 points from 2 games, and really you can't really ask much of them. But for United, it's back to the drawing board. But question for you, Leon. What's your take on the Rashford situation? Should Rashford be starting, or should Garnacho be the man to be getting those starts ahead of Rashford? And of
Honestly,
course, the next big game for United is versus Liverpool.
from those two matches that I've watched since season, I don't think his starting position should be certain, especially for the last match. And we see the impact that Garnacho offers off the bench. The thing is, Rashford is kind of a big game player for Manchester United, so I think that would be the only reason why he would be started coming the next match. Because as you know, Rashford has a fantastic record against the top six, Liverpool especially, and we know that he plays in form for purple patch, and you just need that 1 second to make magic happen. So I think him starting would be more of like what he can provide than what he's actually doing at the moment.
So who starts versus Liverpool in your
I, w-
opinion?
I, I would start Rashford. I would start Rashford. Just
So
I say
similar setup then.
yeah, similar setup. I would
Bruno
just
playing the
start.
false nine, Rashford, Ahmad.
I would I would change the fall now. I would give the striker a start. Drop Bruno the number 10. Keep Mount on the bench, and then if it doesn't work, you can switch Bruno for Mount, because I think that's one of our major issues that happened last match is you start Mason Mount, and you start Bruno false false 9 and number 10, and then by the end of the match, none is on. No creativity, right? So I would say play one, give the striker doesn't look bad. He scored the Garnacho has the necessary pace to be very effective off the bench, and let's see from there.
Definitely. Christoph, what says you? I mean, is that the mold that will get Manchester United success? Is it a similar starting 11, or do you see big changes coming, so to speak? I mean, number of new signings coming in. Mazraoui looking good for the first 2 games, but Delight definitely making a big blunder for that late goal there, Leon. I mean, he seemed to have been ball watching, and of course, big call by Ten Hag to take off the big man Maguire. What's
I
going
think
on?
I think you could blame the whole back four, because you have 3 men at the back post there. There's no way you can blame one player for that. Even the
Well,
goalkeeper should be. even the goalkeeper should be at fault because you take a glimpse, you see three defenders, and you should be screaming at your defenders. But
Yeah, that was a real rookie mistake. I mean, all by himself at the back post, everybody else ball watching. I mean, not a good
he
look at
could
all.
he could have left that, and another Brighton player would have got that goal. So
Ah,
it's
indeed.
poor. It's a poor defensive, especially for that last goal from Manchester United. And Brighton deserved the win, as you would say. Football is a game of
Definitely,
chances.
definitely.
Manchester United didn't take their chance, and Brighton took theirs. So you only can hats off to Brighton.
Soft the Brighton indeed, but we move, Christoph. Arsenal is the next team on the agenda, Christoph. Is Arsenal the genuine article having now gotten the better of Aston Villa, Christoph? Talk to us about that one. Aston Villa going down 2-0 to the big gunners.
I think it's a game of Arsenal's quality really kind of shown through in that match because it's clear that Unai Emery and Aston Villa came with a plan to kind of neutralize what Arsenal were doing. It it looks to me like Emery did see that Arsenal has trouble with their build up in the midfield, one of Arsenal's weaknesses, and it's a weakness that has kind of stemmed from last season, and it's still continuing. Unai Emery set up his team, and they did very well out of possession, defending in that bank, 4-4-2. Instead of pressing the defenders, what he did was to press the build-up players with Ollie Watkins, so Partey and Timber getting pressed, and then he had players like Leon Bailey sitting narrow to kind of overcrowd the midfield and stop Arsenal playing. Also, you kind of spoke about man marking being dead last season, but clearly we saw man marking happening that game. Unana tracking Declan Rice all over the pitch and into that back four.
And
It,
it worked to a large extent, to be
yeah,
honest, if not for Ollie Watkins.
it definitely worked.
To,
Definitely
to be
worked.
honest, Arsenal did not impress me, Christoph. Arsenal
I
got
did.
the win, but they did not impress me one
I,
bit. It
I,
was down to Aston Villa not taking their chances. Some Ole Watkins, call a spade. He was the
I,
man behind the two
I,
big misses.
I'm not sure. I would say it's Ollie Watkins' fault. I would say it's more David Raya had some very good saves.
No man. That
Yeah.
the first
Those
chance there
The first chance, no
when
save.
Gabriel was robbed by the youngster, which to me had man of the match, Morgan. That's a city. You cannot get a better chance than that, Leon, in the EPL. That has to go
Naturally,
in. That
naturally,
first
that has
chance in
to go
around the
in.
25th minute. It's to go
Yeah.
in.
I
And to
mean,
me, if that went in there, I didn't see Arsenal winning. They may have gotten the draw, but I didn't see them winning.
I mean, for Arsenal overall, I think Arsenal performance was good enough for an early season performance. Aston Villa was good too. So I think right now for Arsenal winning, I think that's all you have to do right now. You don't
Yeah,
need to be in
definitely.
top form.
Credit to Arsenal. Credit
Yeah.
must be given to Arsenal for pulling
yeah,
out the
like I
victory.
said,
But
Arsenal came through. They got the 3 points. It was just the overall quality that shone through on the day. Definitely, if Aston Villa had scored first or scored an early goal, it would have definitely. I believe the game would have definitely ended in a loss because they would have been chasing the chances, and then Aston Villa would have used that opportunity to counter attack more
yeah, or
effectively.
even just
And
take one of the chances, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
of the I don't even that second chance by Ole Watkins Leon. Ball
Watkins
coming
has
off the
his
crossbar. He could have easily taken a touch to settle and then the second touch to finish. But he went for
yeah,
the one-time shot, which was a
but
diving header. And
mm,
Raya pulled out a good enough save. I wouldn't say
mm,
it's his best save, but it's a save
he had
nonetheless.
the
But
he had the whole goal to aim for, and he aimed
he
it
had
right
the
at
whole.
Rea.
I mean, it was just very disappointing,
I think
when you look at the bench, you saw Emery just turning away in disgust because you cannot plan for it any better. Press high,
uh,
pinch it off Gabriel, who to me is a weak link in the Arsenal backline in terms of playing out from the back. It was a script that Emery could have written himself.
and
The
fall
only
into
thing
Ollie
missing was the
Watkins.
finish.
Yeah,
But it is what it is. I mean, credit to Arsenal, I must say. I mean, Arteta made the changes, got the result, Trossard coming in, and of course that, strike by Partey, rear goal, you could say a collector's item. He doesn't often score many. Odegaard did miss a big chance as well in that second half when he blazed over the bar. And of course, the impressive player for me, though, I must say, was that youngster, Morgan Rogers. He run circles around this Arsenal team. I recall him going on one of those mazy dribbles, and if not for a better quality finish, it could have been an early contender for a goal of the season. But it was not to be. But I think Aston Villa equipped themselves well. It's just a rusty Ole Watkins. Ole Watkins of last season would have buried those two chances. He probably just needs to get off the mark, get up a bit of confidence, and
Yeah,
you'll
I
probably see
think he
Aston
probably
Villa firing.
yeah, and I think he joined preseason a bit late because of I think he went to did you go to Euros with England,
Yeah,
right?
Oh,
he
yes,
was at
Yeah,
definitely.
so
He
he
was
had
one
to
of the standouts over there.
yeah, so he
that
joined the
moment.
preseason a late. So it could be just about finding his feet, getting some minutes on in his tank and should be firing in a couple games or so because he's getting the chances. So
Definitely, definitely.
conversion, yeah.
And of course, Man City Christoph taking care of business versus Ipswich after being hit early. Did you smell a upset in that one, or was it just routine as usual? The Haaland show, as I as I have mentioned to Circle, look out for the Haaland show, and so said, so done. Haaland coming up with a hat trick versus
It
an
was
Ipswich team
routine.
which
I
made a
mean,
couple of big mistakes.
anybody who was expecting anything out of a Man City game in a team that does not have it in them to upset Man City is just it's crazy.
Well, I
There
mean,
was
that
never
early
going to be.
goal, to be honest, did send the cat amongst the pigeons early,
So
but
so what?
the celebration was short-lived, I must say, Leon. If they could have held out
Yeah.
until halftime at least, then things may have looked differently. But I didn't
Uh,
really predict them to score, but they did get an early goal, and that seemed to have just woken up the Manchester City players
that
into
that
that
is
dominant
one thing.
performance.
That is one thing with Man City. Man City doesn't take chances with those teams that just get promoted. Once they get them, they normally slap them. So I think they got the early goal, but it was always going to be one result.
Definitely. I mean,
Uh, to beat a Man City and to beat a Pep Guardiola team, you have to be able to do at least one of two things. You have to be able to defend extremely well or attack extremely well. And neither of those were Ipswich. If you recall, some years ago, probably second season Pep Guardiola was in the Premier League. I think Liverpool was the only team to kind of really challenge them, and that was because Liverpool was very good at attacking back then with Mane, Firmino, and Salah. And those were the only games that you really saw Man City being tested, and that's the same now. Last season, when Arsenal beat Man City, Arsenal defended extremely well and took the one chance that they got for the game. So you have to either outplay them attacking wise, or you have to be able to defend extremely well to
yeah, I
beat
mean,
Man City.
definitely a balanced approach. A balanced approach has to be. You have to be. I mean, when it comes to these smaller teams, quote and unquote, obviously Man City is going to have superior quality. So what you have to do is to have a threat on the counter. You have to have a threat on the counter. Pacey players that can run with the football, get numbers quickly forward, and be a threat. You might not score, but you have to keep this Man City team on their heels. And that was how that Ipswich goal came about. It was a quick counter attack through ball, which led to a goal. So for you to beat City, City is going to dominate possession. They're going to create more chances. So yes, you definitely have to defend well, but it's not only defending well. You have to be a threat on that counter. You have to keep them honest. You can't allow them to push everyone forward and not be a threat. They have to be looking over their shoulders. And for that goal, that was the case with Ipswich, but it was never consistent throughout. And that is always going to be the threat once it comes to a possession-based team. It's the same thing with a team like Liverpool. That is what was the Achilles heel for Klopp last season. The teams, when Liverpool played against teams were always a threat on that counter, and a number of teams came up with goals. And I think, the new style that Liverpool have now under Slot is a slightly more conservative style, for want of a better word, Leon. It's not
more
that heavy metal
conservative.
football anymore. It's a more slower build up. Even though when you look at the game versus Brentford, the first goal came from one of those quick counter attacking moves. So that is still in the locker. but in terms of build-up, it's now more methodical, I would say. And Liverpool came
I
away
mean,
with a 2-0 win over
that,
Brentford.
that's always going to be the case, though, especially in the first season, because we know the coach is going to imprint his ways. But you have to remember that Jurgen Klopp has been with this team for a good amount of years, so they still have that automatic switch that they can flip to, because it's just muscle memory at this point.
Muscle memory, indeed.
But the longer Slot has this team, the more they're gonna come away from it, right? And
That's true.
I think it kind of suit these players more in terms of the stage of their career. Salah doesn't have that the legs anymore to be pressing a lot. So I think Liverpool did an awesome job with choosing this coach and this type of approach, because I think it kind of fits this team very well with the aging players and mixture of youth
Indeed.
in it also.
Definitely, definitely a shrewd assessment there. I concur, that heavy metal football, high pressing, intense pressing game which Klopp brought to the fore. It was ideal for that period of time when he had the core of those players at their peak. I think for those 2, 3 years when they went toe to toe with Man City, I believe both teams going over 95 points. I believe one of those years Liverpool was pipped by 1 point, and then the other year was very close as well. Maybe it was a single game separating them. So of those 3 years, Liverpool got one out of the three in terms of titles. But definitely, when you look at the statistics, many teams which have won the league in the past did not amass as much points as Liverpool did in those 3 years, only to finish second behind the great Man City. Any other team,
As
they would have had 3, 4 titles under his belt. But
as Arsenal is finding out currently.
as Arsenal is finding out currently, speaking of which, Christoph, full confidence in the Arsenal still. You still feel they'll be able to get the better of Man City going forward.
I still feel this year it must be Arsenal's title, yeah.
And of
Absolutely,
course, they made another
absolutely.
signing, I believe.
Marino,
Moreno.
yeah,
I
Marino,
have
Mikel
I have
Marino.
I have not yet seen the confirmation of that.
Yeah, I think
Indeed.
David Ornstein, I think it's almost as much confirmed. It's not totally completed, but I think it's well over the line,
Well,
to be
As
with
honest.
such a
But
signing, Leon, Man City did bring back Gundogan. Did that signing move the needle?
with Man City is just a well-rounded machine at this point. Gundogan knows the system to point, and he has been a clutch player to them to point. I've followed Barca most of last season, so he still has a lot of quality there. And the new kid they have on the is it the right, looks
That's
good.
right,
So
the Brazilian.
Man City, yeah, Man City is just a well-oiled machine, and surely not they cannot go the fifth year. So Arsenal has to step up big time,
Mm.
big time
And
this year and get it done, right?
And of course, Christoph, Arsenal rivals Spurs coming up big versus Everton, winning that one 4 goals to 0. What can we say of the Spurs team, Christoph? They're off to another decent start. Drew against Leicester in their first game, but came back home and put 4 past Everton. Another big game there. Big results. You know, what's your take on that result or that match?
don't have any take on Tottenham. The season is still very early for them, like we said.
Well, I
Um,
mean,
again, it's
Pochettino is
not.
really playing some solid football, Christoph.
Oh, definitely. We
They
spoke
are
about
one
it
of
last
the,
season. We are impressed by Pochettino, but the test for Spurs is never the beginning of the season. It's
Mm,
whole long before they run out of steam, and late in the season, Spurs tends to peter out, and we saw that last year. We saw that the year before, and we see it basically every year. So right now is not when you look at Spurs and wonder what they can do because they're going to play well up until probably January, February. It's after that where that is the real test for them.
So it's a case of maintaining that quality over the long haul, then, Christoph,
Exactly.
and not necessarily looking at the early fixtures when you say they tend to get their better
No
results. But
pressure.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's when the squad depth is tested, an injury may pop up here or there, teams possibly start figuring out their style of play and so on and so forth.
Right. And again, it's not just Postecoglou. We see it every season with every Tottenham manager. Jose Mourinho, Pochettino, and everybody who has come in. It's always been an issue for them later in the season getting those results.
Okay, well, we definitely have to keep a close eyes on the Spurs machine. But Leon, I would say the biggest performance of the weekend, Chelsea.
The Chelsea. I mean,
Chelsea.
if anyone needed this performance, the coach very well needed this performance with all the noise and all those transfer rumors.
4-2 winners over Wolves.
Wasn't it six?
Oh, sorry,
Six.
six. Sorry.
Oh,
My
you
apologies, Chelsea
you stopped
fans.
watching that match too
Six,
early, Rafa.
6-2 winners over Wolves,
Yeah,
Wow, big performance, big. I didn't see that one coming, especially how that game started. I thought it was same old Chelsea, after going ahead, Wolves hitting back, Wolves
yeah,
creating chances, I must say. And if you even check the XG of that game, Leon, Chelsea surpassed all expectation in terms of getting 6 goals. They had a
yeah.
lower XG than Wolves, but yet they scored 6. They had 8 shots on targets and 6 went in. Wolves had 4 shots on target and they scored
Mhm.
2. And it
I
was the
mean,
Cole Palmer
definitely,
show.
yeah, man, definitely a result for the coach. Get off some of the pressure off his back. That's what you want as a new coach, just some results going for you. As we know that the style takes a while to come. Takes your time to learn the players, and especially with Chelsea with this new transfer strategy and Raheem Sterling coming out last week and demanding demanding what is the club going to do with him. I think this result is very much needed for the Chelsea coach, and he just needs to keep his head down, work with the 21 players he claims he's working with, and try to implement some form of structure into that club and gain the results one by one.
So the question is, Christoph, has Chelsea found its best 11 at this point?
Never, can
Um,
never.
it's too early to say. It's only been one game, really, one win.
Well,
It's been one win. We can't
well,
tell
one
as yet.
one impressive win, I must say,
Uh,
against a quality EPL opponent. Wolves is
it,
no
I tell you what,
relegation candidate.
it's one shocking win, is what I would say.
I would say he has found his best 11, I would think, Leon. The only change I would now make is Modric out and Neto gets his spot.
I
But it's
mean,
a good combination, I think, in the middle where you have a combination of Enzo and Caicedo and then Cole Palmer playing that 10 role. And
but
of course, the
that's
back
it.
line looks set as well.
But the
So
only
the
reason
only,
why I would say the only reason why he started with that midfield even was because Lavia was out. Because I think
well, it could have been
Lavia,
a blessing in disguise where
I think,
Lavia is out injured and
yeah,
it just fall into your lap. So, hey,
quality,
here is the midfield tree you have to work with. So it could have just
definitely.
been that injury to Lavia could just be a blessing in disguise. It made the selection process much easier now.
I
But
mean,
the
only
only
time
change
will
I
tell.
would make going forward is Modric out and Neto in, new signing. So Modric goes to the bench, Neto in. The hat-trick man keeps his place over there and Jackson up front until possibly another number 9 is source or him and Nkunku
Lukaku.
rotate that position, rotate that role where some games it's Nkunku, other games it's Jackson. That seemed to be, where Chelsea is headed.
I
But
mean, they can
definitely
keep it
impressive.
pushing. I think, yeah, definitely. I think he should stick with, as I said, that one change because I think Modric didn't impress, and I think Neto played well. So definitely, why change a winning formula, right? Just keep it pushing.
Yeah, definitely. Picking up ahead of steam. Players are there in abundance to choose from. So let's hope that Chelsea can get a good run of games under their belts where you see a consistent 11 coming to the fore and they can put together a batch of good results and climb up that table. But of course, other teams were in action. Christoph, you had made a call for Leicester over there versus Fulham, but it was Fulham who got the better of that Leicester City team. Of course, you're a former player getting on the score sheet. Can we expect more things from the big man over there?
Yeah,
Smith Rowe.
I am expecting big things from him, barring some injury. I expect him to perform well, and I expect him to get a number of goals and assists for this season. Look for him in the charts this season.
Indeed, indeed, definitely. Quality player just probably need a good run of games and for the injury bug to also stay away. And then, of course, Leon, two of the, you could say, possible relegation candidates were in action as well. Southampton versus Nottingham Forest. And it was the away team who got the win. Southampton now 2 losses from 2 games, both games going down 1-0. And Forest under Santos, former Wolves coach, pulling out another big result, 1-0 versus Southampton. What's your take on this Nottingham Forest team, Leon? Can they escape relegation? What are you seeing from them?
I think so. I think definitely Nottingham have the team to escape relegation. They are a very vertical team. They are very powerful wingers, and I think they should be dangerous on the counter for sure. And we know that that's one thing in the EPL. If you have a good team that can counter well, that stands very good in this EPL. So I think they have Ilanga. I think he played well last season, so I'm looking forward him to kick on. Also Hudson Odoi, and I think they have a well-rounded team. I followed their preseason a bit. The team looks close knit, so we know that they will run for each other and fight for each other. So I think I'm expecting Nottingham to not be relegated this year. I'm expecting them to do some big upsets in some of these all big games coming up this season for sure.
Indeed, indeed. And of course, Newcastle still unbeaten, getting that win versus 10 again with 10 man versus Southampton, and then going to Bournemouth and coming from behind to grab a draw there. So Newcastle remain unbeaten. Bournemouth getting their first points on the board and really as I said in last week, Bournemouth is one of those teams which is oftentimes underestimated, but they are a team that can come up with some good results at times, and I do expect them to finish in the mid-table positions. In all honesty, and they are slowly churning over, really getting back in the groove from the loss of their key man, Solanke. It seems like players like Semenyo have really stepped up and is getting in a few good results. And, they are up and running. Haven't gotten any wins, but 2 draw on the bounce, still unbeaten and 2 points on the board. But much more to come, much more to come. But Christoph, any final thoughts on this weekend's action? We are quickly running out of time. Any final thoughts for you?
Definitely an eye-opening weekend of action, to say the least. Chelsea, eye-opening performance. United. You call it an upset. I don't call it an upset when I expect the result. But we've seen a horrendous VAR decision over the weekend, and to be frank, I'm not looking forward to the remainder of the season if VAR is going to be ruling out, legitimate winners in games. Um, so I have a bad feeling at the moment that it's going to have a big impact on the Premier League season.
Indeed, refereeing decisions are always one to look out for. But Leon, any final thoughts quickly from you?
I just think it should be an exciting season. Nevertheless, the Premier League it keeps on giving new surprises every year and I think overall I think it should be an interesting Premier League and there's a lot to look forward to.
Indeed, definitely another week of football in action. And of course, the cream is already rising to the top. It is Man City out there in the lead. And of course, followed closely by Brighton and Arsenal in terms of the early standard. And of course, Liverpool rounds out the top four. But definitely the cream already rising to the top. And by game week 10, we should see the table taking shape. But early days and lots more football action to come. But there you have it, viewers and subscribers. Thank you again for tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Until next time, this is Rafa signing off.